The galaxy had always been a place where power ruled and the most advanced races governed the stars. The Velorans, with their technologically superior warships and brutal tactics, had dominated for millennia. The Arkan Dominion, a coalition of intelligent, militaristic species, had brought peace to the galaxy by force, keeping weaker civilizations in check. And the Cytherian Collective, a race of psychic beings, had manipulated entire star systems with their formidable mental powers. The Intergalactic Summit, a rare gathering of the galaxy's most influential leaders, was held to discuss matters of security and balance. The Great Hall buzzed with political chatter as representatives of these races took their seats, but there was an undercurrent of unease. A signal had just been detected, one that originated from a far-off and, until now, unexplored part of the galaxy, the home of a primitive, insignificant species, Earth. To the Council, Earth was a backwater world, struggling to leave its cradle in the solar system. Its technology was centuries behind the rest of the galaxy, and its inhabitants, human beings, were no more than a passing curiosity. The Velorans, who had never been known for their humility, laughed at the idea of an insignificant species sending a message to the stars. "It is nothing but an echo from a dying world," said Veloran High Commander Kale, his voice dripping with arrogance. "These humans are nothing. They are still struggling with simple machines. Let them be. Their moment has passed." The Cytherians, too, were dismissive. "Their primitive minds are no threat to us. There are no other psychic beings like us. They are too far beneath us," said the leader of the Cytherian Collective, Zashura, with a chilling calmness. They all agreed. Earth and its inhabitants were irrelevant, unworthy of attention. They would be forgotten as quickly as the signal had appeared. But on Earth, the situation was different. A group of scientists had discovered something that shook them to their core. For years, strange phenomena had been occurring, and no one could explain why. Space-time anomalies, subtle shifts in gravitational fields, and strange energy readings had been detected in the most remote corners of Earth's orbit. As they delved deeper, they began to uncover a more disturbing pattern. Earth's advancements in artificial intelligence, once thought to be slow and primitive, were accelerating at an exponential rate. New AI systems, more sophisticated than anything the galaxy had seen, were beginning to emerge from human research labs. Even more unsettling, the patterns they found seemed to indicate that humanity was on the verge of something extraordinary, something that could alter the course of the galaxy forever. The scientists were stunned. The evolutionary timeline of humanity was not as the galaxy had assumed. Humans had developed hidden potential, a leap forward in intelligence, resilience, and technology. They were evolving in ways that no one had predicted, and what the galaxy's powers had failed to notice, humanity was about to unveil. Earth was no longer the backward, underdeveloped world the galaxy had laughed at. The signal was only the beginning. It was a warning. The humans were on the cusp of a breakthrough, and soon they would no longer be able to hide their growing power. This moment, though unseen by the galaxy's elites, would soon shake them to their very foundations. Earth's species, once thought insignificant, were about to become a force to be reckoned with. And when they did, the galaxy would be forced to face an entirely new kind of challenge, one that no one had prepared for. A sudden, powerful signal erupted from Earth, cutting through the vast silence of space. It surged toward the galaxy's central communication node with such intensity that it sent a ripple through the fabric of space itself. The message was clear, unmistakable, and unlike anything the galaxy had ever received before, humanity's last warning to the galaxy: "We're coming strong." The words echoed across the stars, reverberating through the minds of all who were connected to the central network. At first, the Velorans dismissed it as nothing more than an amateurish, desperate attempt at intimidation. They scoffed, convinced that no primitive species, especially one as backward as Earth, could pose any real threat. Their laughter filled the conference rooms as they exchanged mocking remarks, certain that the message was simply the result of some overzealous human experiment. But then, something unexpected happened. The massive energy surge that accompanied the message didn't dissipate. It lingered, distorting space around it, creating ripples that interfered with galactic communication systems. What was once thought to be a mere signal turned into a wave of energy that disrupted power grids across the galaxy. Suddenly, the arrogance of the Velarans began to falter. The discomfort spread quickly. The other races, though initially skeptical, were beginning to take notice. Advanced scans from various fleets and stations revealed a startling truth. Earth's technological capabilities were growing at an alarming rate. What had been seen as a relatively primitive planet was now showing signs of an incredible leap in advancement. The humans, who had been thought to be far behind in terms of energy manipulation and quantum physics, were now on the cusp of a breakthrough that could shift the balance of power across the stars. Among the few who understood the magnitude of this discovery was Dr. Elena Miles, a leading scientist on Earth. For years, she had been working on theories about quantum energy, something that no one had ever managed to harness effectively. But now, she and her team had succeeded. They had unlocked the secret to manipulating quantum energy, a force so powerful that it could warp space itself, creating pathways and opportunities that no other species had ever imagined. This discovery was not just a scientific achievement, it was the key to revolutionizing humanity's place in the galaxy. Dr. Miles' research had proven that humanity was far from the weak, unassuming species the galaxy believed them to be. They were about to enter a new era, one where they would no longer be dismissed, no longer underestimated. The message Earth had sent was not a threat, but a promise. We are coming. And the promise was not just about power. It was about strength, resilience, and the will to carve out their own future among the stars. Humanity would not be ignored. Their rise was inevitable, and soon the galaxy would have no choice but to accept their place among the most powerful forces in the universe. As the Velarans, the Sotherians, and other galactic powers began to feel the weight of this revelation, a sense of unease settled over them. They had spent centuries shaping the galaxy in their image, but now a new force had emerged, one that they had failed to notice, one that had the potential to reshape everything they had built. The galaxy's most powerful races could no longer afford to look down on Earth. The message was clear. Humanity was on the rise. They were no longer the helpless species that could be easily pushed aside, and they were coming with strength, with knowledge, and with an unyielding will. The galaxy's initial reaction to Earth's old message was one of dismissive laughter and disbelief. The Velarans, who had long believed their power to be unmatched, scoffed at the idea that a species as young and primitive as humans could pose any real threat. They assumed that the message was just the ramblings of an isolated species trying to gain attention. With confidence, they decided to show Earth their place in the galaxy. They would send a fleet to the planet, an overwhelming show of force to remind humanity of its insignificance. The Velaran fleet, a massive armada of warships equipped with advanced weapons and technology, was a force designed to intimidate. It was meant to crush any thoughts of rebellion or resistance before they could even take root. As the Velarans neared Earth, the galaxy watched, waiting for what they assumed would be a quick victory. But when they entered the planet's orbit, what they found was far beyond what they had expected. Rising from Earth's surface, as if from the very heart of the planet, were vast fleets of human warships, sleek, powerful, and equipped with technology that defied the Velarans' understanding. These ships were not the crude, makeshift vessels the galaxy had expected from a primitive world. They were sophisticated and deadly, unlike anything the Velarans had ever seen. And at the helm of this unexpected force stood General Samuel Drake, a battle-hardened tactician whose mind had been shaped by years of preparation. He had known this day would come, and he had prepared humanity for it. The human armada was not only fully formed, but also unmatched in its design. The ships were equipped with technology that could bend gravitational fields, manipulate energy at an atomic level, and create shields so advanced that even the Velaran weapons couldn't pierce them. These were ships that could strike with precision and move with speed that was beyond anything the galaxy's elites had ever imagined. The first clash was brutal. The Velaran fleet, certain of its superiority, rushed forward to engage the humans. Their ships unleashed a barrage of weaponry, powerful enough to devastate entire planets. Yet, to their astonishment, the human ships easily dodged their attacks and retaliated with devastating force. The humans didn't just defend, they countered with advanced weaponry that disrupted the very fabric of space, tearing through the Velaran armada with ease. The Velarans quickly realized that Earth's ships were not just capable of matching their advanced technology, they were far more powerful. Every attack from the Velaran fleet was met with a calculated, precise response, and the human vessels seemed to anticipate their moves before they were even made. The humans weren't just learning from the galaxy's best minds, they had surpassed them. The battle became a brutal dance of tactics and technology. The Velarans, who had always held the belief that they were the pinnacle of military might, found themselves pushed to the brink of defeat. Their fleets, once thought invincible, were now being torn apart by the unrelenting precision of humanity's military. Each strike, each move, proved that Earth was no longer the weak, vulnerable world it had once been. The humans had evolved. They had come into their own, and they were not about to back down. As the battle raged on, it was clear that the Velarans had underestimated the humans, and now they were paying the price. They were faced with an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered, an enemy that wasn't just fighting for survival, but was prepared to challenge the very foundations of galactic power. It was a harsh awakening. The Velarans had thought they could teach humanity a lesson, but instead, they were about to learn one of their own. The galaxy was no longer what they had known, and Earth was no longer the insignificant world they had dismissed. General Drake watched from his command ship, his eyes cold and focused. Humanity had come, and they were coming strong. The unexpected defeat of the Velaran fleet sent shockwaves throughout the galaxy, and panic spread quickly among the powerful galactic factions. The Velarans had always been the galaxy's most feared force, and their failure against humanity's armada was a humiliation none of the other races could ignore. As the other powers scrambled to understand what had just happened, the Cytherian Collective, a race of psychic beings who once considered themselves the true rulers of the galaxy, reacted swiftly. The Cytherians had always prided themselves on their mental abilities. Their psychic powers allowed them to manipulate minds, alter perceptions, and even control the will of others. They had long believed that no species could challenge them in this arena. Earth, a seemingly primitive planet, had never even been considered a threat. To the Cytherians, humans were nothing more than a footnote in the galaxy's history. But the defeat of the Velarans had forced them to take notice, and they feared that humanity might be capable of something far more dangerous than they had initially realized. The Cytherians were not accustomed to facing resistance, especially not from a species that had not even mastered the art of space travel until recently. In response to this growing threat, the Cytherians dispatched an elite psychic envoy to Earth, tasked with investigating humanity's capabilities and, if necessary, subjugating them through mental domination. Their mission was clear: prove that the Cytherians were the galaxy's true rulers and that no species, not even humans, could challenge their authority. The envoy, a powerful group of Cytherian psychics, arrived in Earth's orbit with an air of confidence. They believed that their abilities would overwhelm the humans, bending their minds to their will in a matter of moments. But what they found was something they had never expected. As the Cytherians attempted to probe the minds of the humans, they were met with a wall of resistance. At first, it seemed like a mere inconvenience, something that could be broken through with enough effort. But the longer the Cytherians pressed, the stronger the resistance became. They encountered a mental defense so advanced, so complex, that they could not break through. The humans had evolved in ways the Cytherians had not even considered. They had developed a psychic resistance, an inherent defense against mental manipulation, that was fueled by humanity's drive for survival and the need to adapt. The Cytherians, once invincible in the realm of the mind, found themselves powerless against humanity's mental fortitude. Their psychic powers, once able to crush entire civilizations with a thought, now bounced harmlessly off the humans' defenses. For the first time in their long history, The Cytherians were facing a race that could not be controlled, a species that had evolved to protect itself from their greatest weapon. The panic among the Cytherians grew. They had underestimated the humans in every way. Their minds were not only resistant to psychic intrusion, but they were also capable of incredible mental feats that the Cytherians could not understand. The humans, it seemed, were evolving on all fronts, technologically, militarily, and now mentally. The Cytherians quickly realized that they could not simply overpower humanity through psychic domination. Instead, they would need to adapt their strategy. But before they could make their next move, the humans issued an ultimatum. The message was clear. If the galaxy does not recognize Earth's strength and sovereignty, we will take what is rightfully ours. There was no doubt in the message. It was not a plea for peace or a negotiation. Humanity had made its position clear. Earth was no longer a world to be ignored or dismissed. If the galaxy's powers continued to treat them as insignificant, humanity would rise up and claim their place among the stars. The Cytherians, who had once ruled with absolute power over the minds of other species, now found themselves at a crossroads. They had never encountered a species that could resist their psychic influence. The question now was not whether humanity would be stopped, but whether the galaxy would be willing to accept them as a force to be reckoned with. The Cytherians were forced to confront a terrifying reality. Humanity was no longer a species they could control or manipulate. They were something entirely new, something powerful, and the galaxy would soon have no choice but to recognize their strength. As the galaxy watched in awe and disbelief, something extraordinary was unfolding on Earth. The initial chaos and uncertainty that followed humanity's rise had quickly given way to a unity of purpose unlike anything seen before. Political divisions that had once plagued the nations of Earth dissolved in an instant. Old rivalries, long-standing borders, and petty squabbles became irrelevant in the face of the larger, more pressing threat that loomed from the stars. Humanity had one singular goal now: to defend their home, to prove their worth, and to assert their place among the galactic powers. The once divided world had transformed into a unified force as diverse nations came together to face the galaxy's most powerful beings. Dr. Elena Miles, the brilliant scientist whose discoveries had propelled humanity to the forefront of interstellar power, and General Samuel Drake, the strategic genius who had led the first human victory, forged a powerful alliance. Together, they became the leaders of Earth's new age. Their collaboration was not just military but intellectual. Dr. Miles focused on harnessing the immense scientific potential that had been unlocked in humanity's evolution, while General Drake rallied the people, forging an army capable of defending Earth and pushing back the galactic powers that threatened them. With every passing day, humanity grew stronger, not just in weapons and military might, but in unity and resolve. The Earth that had once been divided by nations, ideologies, and cultures now stood as one. They were building not only a new military force, but a new era of scientific innovation and philosophical cooperation. Nations that had once squabbled over resources and territory now shared knowledge, resources, and expertise. The unification of Earth was not just about surviving the coming conflict, it was about thriving, building a future that would no longer be dictated by the whims of other, more powerful races. As Earth prepared for the inevitable galaxy-wide conflict, it began to look outward, forging alliances with smaller races, those who had long been oppressed or overlooked by the galaxy's dominant powers. The galaxy's elites had always assumed that these lesser species were too weak to matter. But as the humans reached out to them, offering protection and partnership, they found a new strength in these forgotten civilizations. These races, once crushed under the heels of the Velorans, the Cytherians, and the Arcan Dominion, now had a chance to rise. They saw in humanity a shared dream of freedom, strength, and self-determination. And so they united under the banner of Earth, pledging their loyalty to a cause much greater than any one species. Meanwhile, the galaxy's elites were growing increasingly uneasy. The galaxy's most powerful races, those who had long dismissed humanity as insignificant, were forced to reconsider everything they had believed. The Velorans, who had once laughed at Earth's potential, now saw that the humans had evolved in ways they could never have anticipated. The Sotherians, who had thought they could bend human minds to their will, now found themselves facing an enemy with an impenetrable mental defense. The galaxy's once unquestioned rulers now realized that Earth was no longer a mere speck in the cosmos. It was a force to be reckoned with. The humans had not only caught up with the rest of the galaxy, they had surpassed it. Their unity, their drive, and their unyielding will to succeed had made them an unstoppable force. As the galaxy's elite powers scrambled to regroup, they could not escape the fact that humanity's rise was inevitable. The unification of Earth was a turning point, not just for the planet but for the entire galaxy. The rules had changed, and the old powers would have to come to terms with the fact that their dominance was no longer assured. Humanity had proved that it was ready to take its place among the stars, and the galaxy would soon have no choice but to acknowledge it. The stage was set for an all-out conflict, one that would determine the future of the galaxy, and Earth was no longer a mere bystander. The stage was set for the ultimate showdown. The Velorans, the Sotherians, and the other galactic powers, those who had once ruled the stars with impunity, gathered their full might to crush humanity once and for all. They believed that with their superior fleets, psychic powers, and advanced technology, they could easily overwhelm Earth's defenses. After all, Earth was still considered by many to be an insignificant, primitive world. The galaxy's elites had always assumed that human technology was no match for their own, that their armies could never stand up to the might of the established powers. But what they didn't understand was that humanity's greatest strength wasn't just in their technology, it was in their relentless willpower and unbreakable spirit. The human race had evolved in ways that enemies could never have predicted, not just through advancements in science and weapons, but through a burning desire to survive and thrive. It was a strength that no amount of power could extinguish. The final confrontation took place near the galactic core, where the combined fleets of the galaxy's greatest powers amassed, ready to strike. The Velorans, confident in their strength, led the charge, flanked by the Sotherians and their elite psychic forces. They believed the fight would be quick, decisive, and overwhelming. But as the battle raged, they were met with something they had never encountered before: humanity's relentless adaptability. Earth's armada was no longer just a match for their enemies. It was superior in ways they hadn't anticipated. Humanity had learned, adapted, and innovated faster than anyone thought possible. Then, at the height of the battle, humanity revealed its trump card. Dr. Elena Miles, alongside General Samuel Drake, had overseen the development of a quantum weapon, something that could shift the entire balance of power. It was still experimental, but the results were undeniable. The weapon was capable of disrupting the galaxy's entire network of communications and travel. No longer would the galaxy's elites be able to communicate seamlessly across vast distances or jump from one star system to another at will. The weapon had the potential to cripple the very infrastructure of galactic control. The weapon was humanity's ace in the hole, and they used it to devastating effect. As the galactic powers engaged humanity's fleets in the heart of the galaxy, they found their communications cut off, their fleets scattered, and their strategies thrown into chaos. What had once been a well-coordinated assault became a disorganized mess, with each faction struggling to regain control over its forces. The human ships, able to communicate through their own independent networks, quickly exploited this advantage. They outmaneuvered their enemies at every turn, using their superior tactics and relentless persistence to push back against the galaxy's greatest powers. What followed was a series of brutal space battles fought across multiple fronts. The Veloran fleet, once thought invincible, was systematically dismantled by humanity's forces. The Sotherians, who had prided themselves on their psychic abilities, found their minds useless against the mental defenses that humanity had developed, and the smaller, previously overlooked races who had allied with Earth joined in, adding their strength to the human cause. The fight was fierce, but it was clear that the humans had the upper hand. As the battle raged on, it became evident that humanity's true weapon wasn't just the quantum device, It was their ability to adapt, to outthink, and to outlast their enemies. Every move made by the galaxy's greatest powers was met with a human counter. Every tactic was answered with a new and unexpected strategy. In the end, it wasn't the overwhelming force of their enemies that won the war. It was humanity's ingenuity and resolve. The galaxy's most powerful races were forced to confront the truth. Humanity was not a threat to be ignored, nor a species to be dismissed. They had risen from the ashes of their old, divided world and forged a new future in the stars. Their victory was not just a military triumph, it was a statement. The galaxy would now have to reckon with Earth's strength, and Earth's place among the stars was no longer in question. Humanity had proven itself. The once untouchable galactic elites were left reeling, realizing that they had underestimated a force they could no longer ignore. The galaxy had changed forever, and the rise of humanity marked the beginning of a new era. The war was over, but its echoes resonated across the galaxy. In the wake of humanity's stunning victory, the once unshakable galactic powers were left in awe, trying to comprehend how a seemingly insignificant world had turned the tide against them. Humanity had not just survived the onslaught, it had emerged victorious. The Velorans, the Cytherians, and the other galactic powers that had once looked down on Earth now found themselves forced to confront a new reality. Humanity was not just a species to be disregarded, but a force to be reckoned with. The leaders of the galaxy, humbled and wary, extended a rare invitation to Earth's representatives to join the Galactic Council and discuss terms of peace and cooperation. It was a momentous occasion, one that could mark the beginning of a new chapter in galactic relations. Dr. Elena Miles, the brilliant scientist who had led the technological revolution on Earth, and General Samuel Drake, the battle-hardened strategist who had guided humanity's military response, were chosen to represent Earth in these delicate negotiations. When they arrived at the Council's meeting, the atmosphere was tense. The representatives of the galaxy's once great empires were anxious, unsure of what to expect. The galaxy's leaders had once dismissed humanity as primitive and inconsequential, but now they found themselves in a room with those very same humans who had turned the tables on them. There was a deep sense of unease among the council members as they realized just how much had changed. But when Dr. Miles and General Drake spoke, they made one thing clear. Humanity was not interested in becoming a subject of any galactic empire. They had fought for their independence, their survival, and their right to carve their own path in the stars. They had proven their strength, and they would no longer be governed by the rules set by others. Earth's message was resolute. Humanity was not seeking a place under the thumb of any galactic power, nor would they allow themselves to be subsumed into an existing order. Instead, they were determined to build their own future, one where they would not be beholden to anyone. The galaxy's leaders listened in stunned silence, their previous arrogance slowly evaporating. The realization began to settle in that humanity's rise was not a fluke nor an accident. It was the result of a relentless spirit and an indomitable will to succeed. The very qualities that had driven humanity to victory were the same qualities that would propel them to dominate the stars. There was no turning back. The age of human underestimation had ended. No longer would they be seen as a species struggling to survive in a hostile galaxy. Humanity had shown that it could not only stand on equal footing with the galaxy's most powerful empires, but could outthink, outlast, and outperform them at every turn. The council members, once so confident in their superiority, now had to acknowledge humanity's place among the stars. The balance of power had irrevocably shifted, and there was no denying it. The future of the galaxy was no longer theirs to control. It was now in the hands of a species that had proven its worth, humanity. The story closed on a quiet but powerful note, as the leaders of the galaxy slowly nodded in recognition. They knew that they were entering a new era, one where humanity's voice would be heard loud and clear. Earth, once a small and insignificant world, had carved its path into the very fabric of galactic history. The galaxy would never be the same again. Humanity had proven itself stronger than ever before, and it was coming, not just to survive, but to lead. The age of underestimation was over. The age of humanity had begun.